He had always thought that school events would be simple and quiet, just a place to support his daughter and leave as quickly as possible. But that morning he found himself standing in the crowded gymnasium, surrounded by bright decorations, the sound of children laughing, and the constant hum of parents chatting. His daughter tugged at his hand, her little fingers warm in his. He followed her through the maze of tables, balloons, and chairs. He tried to smile naturally, but inside he felt a little out of place. He wasn't used to these kinds of gatherings. He wasn't the type to mingle easily with other parents. His daughter, however, seemed in her element. She waved to her friends, called out excitedly to teachers, and occasionally looked back at him with a grin that said, "You're here, and that's what matters." He smiled back. But the nervous tension in his shoulders didn't ease. He adjusted his shirt, tugged at the sleeves, and wondered if he looked too stiff or awkward. He reminded himself that he was here for her, not for the small fears in his mind, as he was trying to find a place to sit. A group of teachers approached, chatting among themselves. They noticed him and the young woman helping with decorations nearby. She had a calm presence, moving gracefully through the gym, placing streamers just right and straightening chairs with ease. Her hair was tied back simply, but there was something warm in her smile, something that immediately made people feel at ease. She noticed him as he stood a little apart, unsure of what to do, and gave a small, polite nod. That was when the teasing began. One of the teachers, a woman with a bright laugh, leaned slightly toward the others and whispered loudly enough for him to hear. "You know, they'd make a cute couple." The others chuckled. And a few more comments followed, each one poking gentle fun at the idea. At first, he tried to ignore it, shifting his weight nervously from one foot to the other. He laughed awkwardly, hoping the teasing would stop. But each time, he thought it might end. Another comment came, and the laughter grew louder. He looked over at the young woman, expecting her to blush, roll her eyes, or play along with the joke. Instead, she smiled softly, her eyes calm, and simply continued arranging the decorations. She didn't laugh at the comments in the same way the teachers did. She didn't blush or seem flustered. She just moved with quiet confidence, making the moment feel lighter, almost as if she was silently telling everyone that there was nothing serious to joke about. He felt a strange mix of relief and curiosity. Relief, because her reaction made the teasing less awkward than he expected. Curiosity, because he couldn't quite figure out why she reacted the way she did. Most people, he thought, would have laughed nervously or tried to make a joke back. But she remained composed, kind, and entirely unaffected. He realized he was watching someone handle a situation with far more grace than he could manage. His daughter tugged at his hand again, bringing him back to the present. "Dad, come see. I drew a picture for you," she said, holding up a colorful sheet of paper with scribbles and shapes that only a child's imagination could fully explain. He knelt down to look at it, trying to hide the lingering awkwardness from the teasing. He praised her artwork, making sure she felt proud, and she beamed at him, her eyes shining. For a moment, he forgot about the teasing, focusing entirely on the warmth of her happiness. But the teacher's comments still echoed in his mind. He caught snippets of their laughter as they glanced toward him and the young woman, making little side remarks that he could hear even if he tried to ignore them. He felt a flush rising to his cheeks, a mixture of embarrassment and something he couldn't quite name. He realized he cared, in some small way, about what they thought, and yet he also felt an unexpected respect for the young woman who had not let their words affect her as the morning went on. The teasing continued in small, playful bursts. He tried to keep his focus on his daughter and the events around him, but he couldn't help noticing the young woman from time to time. She moved with ease, laughed quietly at the children's antics, and offered help without being asked. Every so often, her eyes would meet his for a brief moment, and there was a subtle understanding there, a silent acknowledgement that she saw him, the teasing, in the situation clearly. He felt a flicker of admiration, realizing that she had turned something potentially awkward into a simple, almost unnoticed moment of grace. During a break in the events, he found himself standing by the refreshment table, pouring coffee into a small cup. The young woman approached to refill her own drink. She smiled politely and nodded toward him. "I think they're enjoying themselves a little too much," she said, her voice calm, yet carrying a hint of amusement. He chuckled softly. "That's one way to put it," he replied. "I'm not used to being the center of attention, even in jokes." She gave a small laugh, not teasing him, but acknowledging his honesty. "You handled it well," she said simply. "It's easy to get flustered. Most people would have laughed nervously or tried to deflect. Didn't you stay composed?" He felt a warmth rise in his chest. Compliments were rare for him in situations like this, especially from someone he barely knew. "Thanks," he said, feeling slightly embarrassed but genuinely grateful. "I'm just here for my daughter. That's the important part." She nodded, her expression thoughtful. "And that's exactly how it should be," she said. "People often forget that the small moments, the simple presence, mean more than trying to impress others or fit into social expectations." He smiled, impressed by the depth in her words. It wasn't often that someone could turn a teasing situation into a subtle lesson about patience, presence, and authenticity. He found himself paying more attention to her now, wondering how she saw the world and what made her so composed. Throughout the rest of the morning, he noticed small things about her that stood out. How she helped children with patience, listening carefully when they struggled. How she coordinated with other volunteers smoothly, never rushing, never showing irritation. How she smiled at his daughter with kindness, making his little girl feel seen and valued. Each small observation added to his growing sense of admiration. It wasn't just that she had reacted differently to the teasing. It was that she carried herself with a quiet strength, a warmth and a kindness that affected everyone around her. When it was time for the event to wind down, the teachers gathered their things and parents started to leave. The teasing had stopped naturally as the focus shifted to other activities. And he felt a strange sense of relief mixed with curiosity. He wanted to speak to the young woman again, to thank her for handling everything so gracefully. But he wasn't sure how to approach it without feeling awkward, as he helped his daughter put on her coat and gather her things. She looked up at him and said, "Dad, she's really nice, isn't she?" He glanced at the young woman, who was busy tidying up supplies, and nodded slowly. "Yes," he replied, a small smile forming. "She really is." His daughter smiled back, satisfied with his answer, and they walked toward the door together, even as they left. He couldn't shake the feeling that something about this day would stick with him. The teasing, the awkward moments, the laughter, all of it had been transformed by the calm, unexpected reaction of a stranger who had shown him that grace. Kindness and presence could turn any situation around. He realized that this was more than just a moment at a school event. It was a lesson, quiet but powerful, about how people react when faced with unexpected situations, and how true character shines through when tested. By the time they reached the car, he had made a silent decision. He wanted to know this young woman better, not for the teasing or for any superficial reason, but because her presence had left an impression on him. She had shown him that reactions could be thoughtful, measured, and unexpectedly profound. He wanted to understand that better, to learn from it, and maybe, in some small way, bring a little of that calm strength into his own life. He buckled his daughter into her seat and glanced back toward the school. Watching people leave and hearing faint echoes of laughter and conversation, he thought about the initial teasing, about the warmth he had seen in her smile, about the quiet way she had handled everything. He felt a mixture of curiosity and respect, and for the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to feel a small spark of hope that good things, genuine things, could still happen in moments he had once considered ordinary. As they drove home, his daughter chattered about the event, her excitement filling the car. He listened carefully, smiling and responding when appropriate. But his mind occasionally drifted to that calm, composed smile, the kindness in her eyes, and the subtle confidence she had shown. It had been just a few hours, yet it felt like the beginning of something more meaningful than he could fully articulate. He realized that life had a way of surprising people, even in the simplest settings, and that the reactions of others could teach lessons far beyond the immediate moment. By the time they reached their house, the day had already left a quiet but significant mark on him. He helped his daughter inside, hung up her coat, and thought again about the way she had navigated the teasing, the laughter, and the small social chaos. It had been nothing like what he expected, and yet it was perfect in its simplicity. He felt grateful, a little humbled, and quietly inspired. And as he settled into the evening, thinking back over the day, he realized that sometimes the most unexpected reactions could change the way someone saw the world, and even the way they saw themselves. The day after the school event, the single dad found himself thinking more about the young woman than he wanted to admit. It wasn't that he had romantic intentions or that he was imagining anything dramatic. It was simply that her presence had left an impression, a quiet kind of admiration that lingered in his mind. He kept replaying the scene in his head, how calm she had been, how she had handled the teasing, and the way she had smiled at his daughter with such warmth. His daughter, noticing his thoughtful silence at breakfast, looked up and said, "Dad, you were really watching her yesterday, weren't you?" He laughed softly, a little embarrassed. "I was paying attention," he admitted. "She was different. She handled everything so nicely." His daughter grinned knowingly. "I told you. She's really kind. And she's good at making everyone feel calm," he nodded. Feeling a mix of pride for his daughter's insight and curiosity about the young woman. Throughout the morning, he went about his usual routine, but he found himself distracted. Work calls, emails, and errands felt heavier somehow because his mind kept drifting back to the school event. He wondered how someone could have such a gentle yet strong presence. It wasn't just her reaction to the teasing. It was the way she moved, spoke, and interacted with everyone. She made things feel lighter without trying to show off or draw attention to herself. Meanwhile, school, the young woman continued her volunteer work as usual. She didn't linger on the teasing from the previous day, nor did she bring it up with anyone. Instead, she focused on the students, helping them with projects, guiding them gently, and making the environment friendly and welcoming. Some of the children ran up to her, hugging her briefly or asking questions, and she responded with patience and encouragement. She didn't have to be the center of attention, yet her quiet confidence made her noticeable to everyone around. Back at home, Dad reflected on the moments he had shared with his daughter during the event. He realized that she had watched the interactions closely as well. Her eyes had followed the young woman's movements, and she had noticed the same kindness, the same patience. He smiled at the thought. His daughter had a good sense of character. It made him proud that she appreciated qualities beyond appearances. Later that day, the dad decided to check in with the school. He wanted to make sure he stayed involved in activities for his daughter. And it was a good excuse to interact with the young woman again without it feeling forced. When he arrived at the school, he saw her organizing materials for an upcoming project. She greeted him with a polite smile, and he noticed the same calm, warm energy that had captivated him the day before. "Good morning," he said, trying to keep his voice casual. "I wanted to see if there's anything I can do to help with the projects." She looked up and nodded. "That's kind of you. There's always something that needs sorting or organizing." Her voice was friendly, without being overly familiar, but it carried a sincerity that made him want to contribute. As they worked side by side, he found himself observing her more closely. She didn't rush, she didn't complain, and she made small gestures of encouragement to the students nearby. Every so often, her eyes would meet his, and there was a subtle acknowledgement there, almost as if she remembered the previous day's teasing and had silently noted his reaction. It was respectful, kind, and unassuming. He admired the way she treated everyone equally, giving attention and care to both children and adults alike. His daughter joined them briefly, helping with small tasks. She moved with energy and excitement, but she also respected the calm atmosphere that the young woman had created. He noticed how effortlessly the two of them interacted, how the young woman guided her without ever seeming overbearing. His daughter seemed to respond naturally, listening carefully and following instructions while still feeling free to express her own ideas. It was a small, beautiful scene of mentorship and guidance. Throughout the morning, Dad started to understand something important. This young woman wasn't just polite or patient. She had a way of connecting with people that was genuine and thoughtful. She noticed the little things that mattered, the small gestures, the quiet discomforts. and she responded in ways that made life easier for everyone around her. He realized that the teasing from the previous day had been handled not with humor or deflection, but with integrity and understanding. At lunch, they all sat together in a small break area. His daughter chatted happily, sharing stories from school, while he and the young woman listened and responded when appropriate. He noticed that she asked questions with interest, paying attention to his daughter's words and reactions. It wasn't forced curiosity, it was genuine engagement, a desire to understand and connect. He found himself appreciating her even more. During a quiet moment, she turned to him and said softly, "You handled yesterday really well. Most people would have laughed nervously or tried to change the subject. You stayed calm and it made a difference." He felt a warmth in his chest at her words. "Thank you," he replied. "I didn't know what to do at first. I just tried to focus on my daughter and not get caught up in the teasing." She nodded. "That's all anyone could ask. Your daughter noticed too, by the way. She thinks very highly of you." He looked at his daughter, who smiled proudly. "I told you," she said, nudging him playfully. "You did great," he laughed softly, feeling a mix of pride and amusement. The young woman's presence added another layer to the day, a sense of calm and understanding that made even the simplest moments feel meaningful. After lunch, they returned to organizing materials for an upcoming school project. The dad noticed how the young woman guided the children, encouraging their creativity while helping them stay on task. She didn't impose her ideas. She asked questions, listened carefully, and offered suggestions only when needed. He watched his daughter respond to her guidance, following instructions while still expressing her own creativity. He realized that this was the kind of person who left an impact quietly, through actions rather than words. As the afternoon wore on, the dad found himself thinking about how rare it was to meet someone with this combination of calm confidence, patience, and kindness. He had encountered many people in his life, but few had left such a genuine impression. She wasn't seeking attention, recognition, or praise. She simply interacted with honesty, respect, and care. He felt inspired by the example she set, both for his daughter and for him. When it was time to leave, he helped his daughter gather her things while the young woman tidied the area. He felt a small pang of reluctance to leave. He wanted to say more, to express his appreciation for the way she had handled everything, but he wasn't sure how to do it without sounding awkward. She noticed his hesitation and smiled kindly. "It was good to have you here today," she said simply. "You help create a positive environment for your daughter, and that makes a difference." He nodded, feeling a sense of gratitude. "Thank you. I really appreciate your guidance with her too. She enjoys being around you." She smiled again, a small, genuine smile that made him feel calm and respected. "That means a lot," she said. "She's a bright, thoughtful child. It's easy to enjoy spending time with her." As they walked toward the door, his daughter chatted excitedly about the projects and activities, her energy infectious. He listened attentively, occasionally glancing at the young woman, who moved with ease, carrying herself with the same quiet confidence and kindness he had admired since the first day. He realized that this connection, even in its simplicity, was teaching him something important, that patience, thoughtfulness, and genuine attention to others could turn ordinary moments into meaningful experiences. On the drive home, he reflected on the day. He thought about the small gestures, the moments of understanding, and the way she had handled the teasing and interaction so naturally. It wasn't about impressing anyone or seeking approval. It was about being present, kind, and authentic. He wanted to bring a little of that into his own life, to approach his daughter, friends, and colleagues with the same thoughtfulness he had witnessed. His daughter fell asleep halfway through the ride, her small head resting against the window. He smiled softly, feeling a mix of pride, admiration, and quiet hope. He realized that the day had been more than just school activities. It had been a lesson in observation, patience, and human connection. He felt grateful for the chance to witness it firsthand. Later that evening, he thought about the young woman again. He realized that the respect he felt for her wasn't just admiration, it was a recognition of how rare it was to meet someone who could inspire calm, confidence, and genuine kindness without even trying. He He knew he wanted to continue learning from her example, not for himself alone, but for his daughter. For the small moments in life, and for the quiet strength it brought to others. As he got ready for bed, he replayed the day's events in his mind. The teasing, the calm reactions, the small acts of kindness, and the genuine engagement with his daughter, all of it, formed a picture he couldn't easily forget. He realized that these moments mattered more than he had thought. They weren't just interactions at a school event. They were lessons in life, patience, and understanding. He felt a quiet sense of anticipation. Not for something dramatic, but for the continued growth of this connection. It wasn't about romance or grand gestures. It was about the human experience. The way people could impact each other's lives simply by being present, kind, and thoughtful. And he knew that the lessons from this day would stay with him, guiding him in small, meaningful ways for a long time to come. As he turned off the light and settled under the blankets, he allowed himself one final thought. Sometimes, the people we meet unexpectedly, the ones we notice in quiet moments, can teach us more than we ever imagined. And sometimes, those lessons are worth more than words. More than recognition, they are lessons in how to be better, kinder, and more attentive to the lives we touch every day. A few days later, the single dad found himself back at the school, this time helping with a small community project. It wasn't anything big, just organizing materials, assisting with children, and making sure things ran smoothly. But he felt a sense of purpose as he walked through the familiar hallways, his daughter skipping happily beside him. He was used to these moments now, more comfortable than before. Though he couldn't deny that he still thought about the young woman from time to time, she was there. As always, moving gracefully from table to table, helping children, arranging materials, and quietly guiding volunteers. She greeted him with a simple nod and a small smile that made him feel instantly at ease. Today, there was no teasing from teachers, no awkward comments, just the calm, steady presence he had come to notice and admire. He realized he was learning more about her each time he saw her, not through grand gestures or words, but through small, consistent actions as he set up supplies for the activity. He noticed his daughter glancing at the young woman and then at him. She seemed curious, perhaps sensing the subtle attention he paid. "Dad," she said softly, "she's really nice, isn't she?" He smiled, feeling a mixture of amusement and agreement. "Yes, she really is. She has a way of making everyone feel calm and comfortable." His daughter nodded, satisfied, and ran off to help with the children, her energy filling the room. The young woman walked over to him while he was organizing markers and paper. "I saw how you helped yesterday," she said quietly. "You were patient, calm, and really attentive to your daughter." She noticed too. He felt a warmth rise in his chest. "Thanks," he replied, trying to keep his tone casual. "I just try to do what I can. It's important to me that she feels supported." She nodded, her eyes kind and understanding. "It shows. Not everyone pays attention like that, but she can feel it, and that's what matters." He realized he wanted to say more, but wasn't sure what. Talking to her felt different. It wasn't like talking to anyone else. There was no need to impress her or explain himself. He just wanted to express gratitude, respect, and curiosity all at once, but words felt inadequate. She seemed to understand anyway, as if she could see the thoughts behind his quiet smiles and subtle gestures. Throughout the morning, he worked alongside her more closely than before. She asked questions about his daughter's ideas for the project and listened carefully to his responses. He noticed the patience she showed, even when things didn't go as planned. A child spilled paint on the table, and instead of reacting with frustration, she calmly cleaned it up while reassuring the child that mistakes were part of learning. The dad watched, silently impressed, realizing that this was the kind of presence that could influence not only his daughter, but everyone around her. During a short break, they stepped outside for fresh air. The sun was warm, and the schoolyard was quiet, the children still engaged in small activities nearby. He found himself talking more freely, encouraged by the calm space. "I was thinking about yesterday," he said slowly. "About how you handled the teasing? I honestly didn't know what to do at first, in your reaction. It was something else." completely different from what I expected. She smiled softly, tilting her head slightly. I guess I just wanted to make it simple, she replied. Nothing serious was happening, so there was no need to make it complicated. You reacted honestly, and that mattered more than any joke could. He looked at her, realizing how rare it was to meet someone who could respond with such clarity and composure. Most people might have felt embarrassed, flustered, or tried to deflect attention. She didn't. She simply responded with honesty and quiet grace, and in doing so, she had left a lasting impression. You make it seem so easy, he said, a little awed. I wish I could react that calmly all the time. She laughed gently. It's not always easy, she admitted. I just try to focus on what matters. And right now, the children and the projects are what matter. He nodded, understanding. It wasn't just about the teasing or the social interaction. It was about priorities, presence, and genuine care. She had a way of seeing beyond surface distractions, and it made him think about his own life. How often did he get caught up in small worries, forgetting what truly mattered? Watching her, he realized that calmness and focus weren't just traits, they were choices, cultivated through attention and intention. As they returned to the indoor activities, a small group of parents approached, asking questions and seeking help with organizing tasks. The young woman directed them kindly, explaining what needed to be done without raising her voice or showing impatience. He noticed how she maintained the same gentle demeanor with everyone, whether it was a volunteer, a parent, or a child. Her patience was steady, consistent, and incredibly rare. He felt inspired, wanting to emulate that quality, even in small ways. At one point, his daughter came running toward him, her face bright with excitement. Dad, look what I made. She held up a small craft she had created for the project. He knelt down to examine it, genuinely impressed, and praised her effort. She beamed, proud of her work and happy to share it with him. The young woman approached and crouched beside them, offering encouraging words to his daughter without overshadowing her. That's wonderful, she said warmly. You put a lot of thought into it. Great job. The dad watched, feeling a mix of pride and admiration. She had a way of supporting and encouraging, without taking over, a subtle balance that made everyone feel respected and valued. His daughter absorbed the praise, glowing with confidence, and he realized that this kind of interaction was shaping not only her skills but her sense of self-worth. He felt grateful that she had encountered someone like this, someone who exemplified kindness and patience naturally. As the day continued, he found himself sharing more about his daughter with the young woman. He spoke about her interests, her favorite activities, and small details about her personality. She listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions and responding in ways that showed genuine interest. It wasn't forced conversation. It was authentic, respectful, and engaging. He felt a connection forming, built not on superficial attraction but on mutual respect and shared concern for his daughter's well-being. Later, when things started to quiet down, the young woman approached him privately. I wanted to say something, she began softly. You're doing a great job with your daughter. She's lucky to have a parent who pays so much attention to her and takes the time to guide her. He felt his cheeks warm at her words. Thank you, he replied sincerely. I try, but I'm far from perfect. She shook her head gently. Perfection isn't the point. Presence is, and you're present for her in ways that matter more than anything else. He realized how rare it was to hear such honest and thoughtful feedback. Most people offered compliments that were casual or surface level, but hers felt meaningful. It wasn't about flattery, it was recognition of effort, intention, and heart. He felt a deep respect for her, admiring not only her actions, but also her ability to articulate insights with kindness and clarity. The rest of the afternoon passed quickly, filled with organizing, guiding children, and small conversations. He noticed how her presence brought a sense of calm to the room. Even when small mishaps occurred, like spilled supplies or children arguing over materials, she handled everything with patience and understanding. Her ability to navigate these moments made him reflect on his own reactions to challenges. He wanted to approach situations with the same steady, thoughtful mindset, learning from her example without even realizing it. When it was time to leave, his daughter hugged him tightly, thanking him for helping with the project. He glanced at the young woman, who waved goodbye with a small, warm smile. "See you next time," she said simply. He nodded, feeling a sense of anticipation for future encounters. It wasn't excitement in the dramatic sense, it was quiet curiosity, a desire to continue learning from her presence and example. On the drive home, his daughter chattered happily about the activities, describing each moment in vivid detail. He listened, laughing and responding when appropriate, but his thoughts often drifted to the young woman. He realized that his admiration wasn't just about her handling of teasing or school projects. It was about the way she moved through life with calm confidence, thoughtfulness, and kindness. She had a subtle strength that left an impression without needing recognition, and he found himself inspired to cultivate similar qualities. That evening, after his daughter was asleep, he sat quietly in the living room, reflecting on the day. He thought about her words, her actions, and the small lessons embedded in each interaction. It wasn't about romance, attention, or drama. It was about observing, learning, appreciating the impact someone could have simply by being present and genuine. He felt grateful for the opportunity to witness it firsthand and recognized that these moments, though seemingly ordinary, carried profound meaning. He realized that this connection, formed through small interactions, mutual respect, and quiet understanding, was rare and valuable. It wasn't a connection built on grand gestures or dramatic events. It was built on authenticity, patience, and a shared focus on what truly mattered: his daughter, the children, and the simple, meaningful acts of care and guidance. Before going to bed, he made a silent promise to himself. He wanted to carry these lessons forward, to approach life with the same patience, thoughtfulness, and authenticity he had witnessed. It wasn't about being perfect, it was about being present, genuine, and attentive to the people and moments that mattered most. And as he drifted to sleep, he knew that this day had changed something inside him. The young woman had shown him, in ways he could not have anticipated, that true strength, kindness, and understanding were expressed not through words alone, but through consistent, thoughtful actions. It was a lesson he would carry with him, not just for himself, but for his daughter, for the small moments that mattered, and for the quiet connections that could unexpectedly shape a life. Days turned into weeks, and the single dad began to notice a subtle rhythm forming in his life. School events, volunteer activities, and project days had become part of the routine. But now they carried an unexpected sense of connection. He no longer felt like an outsider at these gatherings. Instead, he was fully present, attentive to his daughter and increasingly aware of the young woman who seemed to embody calm and thoughtfulness in every small gesture. It was during one of these routine days that he noticed something new. As he arrived at the school, his daughter ran ahead to greet the other children, and he saw the young woman already there, arranging materials for an afternoon project. She noticed him, of course, and greeted him with a small nod and a warm smile. But this time, there was something different in her expression and openness, a quiet acknowledgement of familiarity, as if she had begun to notice him too in a new way. He felt a strange mix of curiosity and comfort. The initial admiration he had felt had deepened into a genuine sense of respect and connection. He realized that her presence was not just inspiring because of what she did, but because of who she was. Her kindness, patience, and attentiveness were constant, not dependent on circumstance or recognition, and he found himself drawn to that consistency, wanting to learn from it, emulate it, and perhaps share in it, even in small ways. Throughout the morning, they worked closely on the project together. The young woman explained tasks to the children, guiding them with patience and encouragement. The dad noticed how effortlessly she adapted to each child's needs, helping one who was struggling to understand instructions, praising another for a creative idea, and gently redirecting someone who had wandered off task. He was quietly amazed. Every interaction she had was meaningful, deliberate, and kind. It wasn't showy or overbearing. It was natural. At one point, one of the children accidentally knocked over a stack of papers, scattering them across the floor. Some of the parents nearby muttered in frustration, or rush to help. But the young woman crouched down calmly, gathering the papers while whispering reassurances to the child who had caused the accident. "It's okay," she said softly. "Mistakes happen. Let's fix this together." Her tone was gentle, her focus unwavering. The dad found himself watching, learning, and feeling a growing admiration for the way she handled challenges without drama or judgment. His daughter ran over to show him her own progress, and the young woman smiled at her, giving a small nod of encouragement. "That's really creative," she said. "I love how you thought of that idea." The little praise was enough to light up his daughter's face, and he felt a swell of pride. He realized that this young woman had a way of reaching people that was subtle but profound. She didn't just give instructions or feedback, she connected with each person in a way that made them feel seen, valued, and capable. During a short break, they stepped outside to get some fresh air. The sun was gentle, casting long shadows across the playground. He and the young woman stood quietly, observing the children running and playing. "You have a remarkable way with them," he said softly. "It's not just teaching, they respond to you differently. You make them feel safe and confident." She looked at him, her expression calm and thoughtful. "I try to notice them," she said. "Pay attention. Everyone wants to feel seen and understood. If I can help them feel that way, even a little, then it's worth it." He was struck by her humility. Her words weren't boastful or self-important. They were simple, sincere, and reflective of her actions. He realized that she didn't seek recognition or praise, she simply acted with intention and care. And in doing so, she inspired those around her to be more patient, kind, and present themselves. He thought about how much he wanted to bring some of that into his own life, to approach parenting, work, in social interactions with a little more thoughtfulness and calm. As the afternoon progressed, they returned to the indoor activities. The children continued with their projects, and he noticed the young woman moving seamlessly between tasks, offering guidance here, encouragement there, and occasionally stepping back to let the children explore on their own. He admired her ability to balance attention and independence, structure and freedom. It was a skill he hadn't realized he valued until he saw it in action. At one point, a small disagreement arose between two children over supplies. One of them began to cry, and the other looked frustrated. He expected tension or raised voices, but she calmly intervened. She knelt down, speaking softly to each child in turn. "I understand you're upset," she said, "but let's find a way to share. We can do this together." Her approach was patient, non-judgmental, and focused on collaboration rather than blame. Within moments, the children had calmed down and were working together again. The dad felt a sense of awe at her skill and presence. Later, they gathered everyone to review the day's work. The young woman addressed the children with warmth, praising their efforts and highlighting their creativity. She encouraged them to continue exploring, learning, and expressing themselves. He noticed how the children listened attentively, not out of fear or obligation, but out of respect and trust. The young woman had created an environment where they felt safe, valued, and motivated. And in the midst of all this, he realized how much he had learned just by observing her lessons in patience, empathy, and leadership that didn't rely on authority, but on genuine human connection. When it was finally time to pack up and leave, his daughter ran to him with her creations, proudly showing off her work. The young woman waved goodbye with a small, warm smile. "See you next time," she said. He nodded, feeling a quiet sense of gratitude. It wasn't excitement or infatuation, it was admiration, respect, and an appreciation for the subtle ways she influenced and uplifted those around her. On the drive home, his daughter chatted nonstop about the activities, her voice bright with enthusiasm. He listened, smiling, but his mind kept returning to the young woman. He thought about her calm confidence, her gentle guidance, and the way she handled every challenge with grace. He realized that her example was already shaping the way he approached his own parenting and interactions with others. He wanted to be more patient, attentive, and thoughtful, not for recognition, but because he understood the quiet power of such qualities. That evening, after putting his daughter to bed, he reflected on the day. He thought about how the young woman's presence had transformed ordinary moments into lessons in human connection. It wasn't about grandeur or drama. It was about small actions, consistent kindness, and mindful attention. He realized that her influence was subtle but profound, shaping the children's experiences, his daughter's confidence, and even his own perspective. He found himself thinking back to the first time he had seen her. During the teasing at the school event, what had seemed like a minor awkward moment had turned into a profound lesson in grace, patience, and authenticity. Her reaction had been nothing like he expected. It was better. It had opened his eyes to the ways people can influence each other simply by being themselves, present, and attentive. As the night deepened, he made a mental note to carry these lessons forward. He wanted to approach his daughter with more patience, to observe others with curiosity and kindness, and to respond to challenges with calm and clarity. He understood now that human connection wasn't built through dramatic gestures or words. It was built through consistent, thoughtful actions that respected and valued others. The young woman had taught him more than he could have imagined, and he felt a quiet determination to honor that example. He wasn't sure how often he would see her outside school projects, or if their paths would continue to cross in meaningful ways. But he knew that the lessons he had learned from observing her, the importance of patience, kindness, and presence would stay with him, shaping the way he interacted with his daughter, the children, and everyone he encountered before going to bed. He thought about the little moments of the day, the children laughing, the small disagreements resolved with calm guidance, the creativity of his daughter, and the warmth and attentiveness of the young woman. Each moment seemed ordinary, yet together they formed a pattern of care, understanding, and human connection that he had not experienced in this way before. He realized that life had a quiet way of teaching lessons, often through people we encounter unexpectedly. And sometimes the most profound lessons came not from grand gestures or dramatic events, but from steady, thoughtful presence, the kind of presence the young woman had shown every day, quietly and consistently. As he turned off the light and settled into bed, he felt a deep sense of gratitude. It wasn't about admiration in the ordinary sense. It was about recognition, understanding, and inspiration. He understood now that the young woman's reaction to past teasing, her consistent kindness, and her calm confidence were far more impactful than he had first realized. They had changed the way he saw the world, his daughter, and himself. And as he drifted off to sleep, he carried a quiet hope with him, not for romance or recognition, but for the continued opportunity to learn, grow, and approach life with the same patience, empathy, and thoughtful presence that he had witnessed in her. The lessons of the day were simple, yet profound. Human connection, respect, and kindness could transform ordinary moments into experiences that shaped hearts and lives. The weeks that followed continued much like the ones before, filled with school activities, projects, quiet moments spent observing and learning from the young woman's calm and thoughtful presence. The single dad noticed subtle changes in himself as he participated more actively in these events. He was more patient with his daughter, more observant of the children around him, and more aware of the impact small acts of kindness could have. His daughter, of course, noticed too. She seemed happier, more confident, and more willing to take on new challenges. The dad realized that much of this had to do with the environment the young woman fostered. Her guidance wasn't strict or controlling. It was gentle, encouraging, and empowering. Children responded naturally to her, not out of fear or obligation, but because she had a way of making them feel capable and valued. And seeing his daughter flourish in that environment filled him with gratitude. One afternoon, after helping with a particularly involved project, he found himself walking with the young woman outside the school. The sun was beginning to set, casting a golden glow over the playground. They were quiet at first, letting the children play freely nearby. Then softly she spoke. "You've changed, you know," she said. "I can see it in how you interact with your daughter, with the children, and even how you handle these small challenges. You're more patient. You're more present?" He paused, considering her words. I didn't realize it," he admitted. "I guess I've been learning by watching you," she smiled gently. "And that's the point," she said. "We learn from each other, even in ways we don't notice immediately." Your daughter benefits because you're changing too. That matters. He felt a warmth in his chest, a mix of gratitude and quiet humility. It wasn't often someone offered such honest and thoughtful feedback, especially someone he respected so much. I'm grateful for that, he said softly. For everything you've done for my daughter, for me, and for the kids here. You've shown me something I didn't know I needed to see. She shook her head slightly, her calm expression unwavering. I haven't done anything extraordinary, she said. I just notice. Pay attention. Care. That's all. Her words were simple, but they carried weight. He realized that what she considered ordinary was in fact remarkable. It was the quiet, consistent care, the patience, the authenticity that made her presence so powerful as the days continued. Their interactions became more comfortable and natural. He found himself seeking advice not because he doubted himself, but because he genuinely valued her perspective. She responded thoughtfully, never judging, always encouraging. He learned small ways to guide his daughter better, to listen more, and to appreciate the small victories rather than focusing on flaws or mistakes. One rainy afternoon, he stayed behind after a school activity to help clean up. The children had gone home, leaving the room quiet except for the sound of dripping rain against the windows. The young woman was organizing supplies, and he helped without speaking much at first. Then, after a pause, she spoke. You've grown comfortable here, she said, a small hint of amusement in her voice. He smiled faintly. I think I have, he admitted. It doesn't feel as awkward anymore. I'm more aware of what's important, I guess. And I've noticed. I notice a lot more things now. Small things that matter. Oh. She looked at him thoughtfully. And that awareness will carry beyond these walls. It's not just about helping with projects or guiding children. It's about noticing the people around you in life, your friends, yourself. It changes everything. Her words sank in, and he realized the truth in them. He had been so focused on the tasks, on doing things correctly, that he hadn't paid attention to the deeper lessons: presence, empathy, and genuine connection. Watching her, observing her interactions, and noticing the subtle ways she cared for everyone around her had quietly reshaped his perspective. Over time, he began to apply these lessons in small ways outside school. At home, he listened more carefully to his daughter, letting her share her thoughts and feelings without immediately jumping in with instructions. At work, he noticed colleagues' needs and offered help or a kind word. He found himself more patient with strangers, more aware of the impact of small gestures. It wasn't dramatic, but the difference was real, subtle, and meaningful. His daughter noticed too. She would sometimes look up at him during bedtime stories and say, "Dad, I like how you listen to me now." He smiled, quietly proud that she recognized his efforts. He realized that these changes weren't just about him. They were shaping the person his daughter was becoming, teaching her patience, empathy, and the value of thoughtful attention to others. One sunny afternoon, while helping with a school event, the dad and the young woman found a quiet moment together. The children were busy with activities, and the room hummed with laughter and chatter. She looked at him and said softly, "It's rare, you know. People who can pay attention like this, people who learn from others, who notice, who care. You're doing it naturally, and it shows." He felt a deep sense of gratitude. "Thank you," he said quietly. "It hasn't been intentional at first, but I see now how important it is. And it's because I've been learning from you." She smiled, a small, genuine smile that reached her eyes. "Then it's working," she said. "We influence each other more than we realize." The afternoon passed, filled with laughter, creativity, and small lessons in patience and connection. As they packed up, the dad felt a quiet contentment. He had come to these events uncertain, slightly awkward, unsure of his place. Now, he felt grounded, attentive, and grateful for the people around him, especially the young woman who had changed his perspective not through grand gestures, but through quiet, thoughtful presence. Later that evening, at home, he reflected on the journey of the past weeks. The teasing, the initial awkward moments, and the calm, unexpected reactions of the young woman had led to something far more meaningful than he could have anticipated. He realized that relationships, even those that begin simply or unexpectedly, could shape lives profoundly when they were based on respect, understanding, and authentic human connection. His daughter fell asleep after bedtime stories, clutching a small stuffed animal. He watched her for a moment, feeling a sense of peace. He knew that the lessons he had learned from the young woman would not only benefit him, but would ripple outward to his daughter and the children he interacted with. It wasn't about recognition or gratitude, it was about genuine change and growth, and the power of presence. Over the next few weeks, the pattern continued. He noticed himself reacting differently to challenges, communicating more thoughtfully, and paying closer attention to the needs of those around him. The young woman remained a quiet guide, not offering unsolicited advice, but demonstrating through action the importance of empathy, patience, and respect. He found that her influence was subtle but lasting, shaping not only his behavior, but his perspective on life. One afternoon, while sitting in a quiet corner of the schoolyard, he reflected on how far he had come. He remembered the first teasing incident, the embarrassment, and the uncertainty he had felt. He thought about her unexpected reaction, her calm presence, and the way she had handled everything without drama or exaggeration. That moment had been small, yet it had set in motion a chain of experiences that had changed the way he approached life, parenting, and human connection. He realized that the story of the past weeks wasn't just about him. His daughter, or the young woman it, was about the lessons embedded in ordinary moments. It was about noticing, responding thoughtfully, and being present for others. And it was about understanding that respect, kindness, and empathy could transform relationships and experiences in ways that were often invisible at first but profound over time.